Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Marvel's What If Season 2. So let's start with episode 4. It was called What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grand Master? And as it starts, we see that Tony Stark didn't make it back to Earth at the end of the Battle of New York, but instead finds himself on Sakaar, where the Grand Master wants him to stay a while before he heads back to Earth. This, of course, a different universe from where he did, in fact, make it back to Earth after the Battle of New York. So Tony is treated to a bit of intergalactic NASCAR, as he calls it, when the planet's chariot race Grand Prix is held on the Grandmaster's birthday, during which a giant elephant is released, prompting Tony to suit up to try to stop its rampage, which he does by accidentally destroying it, at which point he's confronted by a blaster and a sword-wielding Gamora, before both he and she are zapped and jailed by the Grandmaster's goon in a fancy suite alongside Korg. Tony soon breaks out, with Korg leaving Gamora, who is still doing Thanos' bidding, behind, but she soon also breaks out and tells Tony that Thanos is pissed at him for accidentally taking out his ship with the missile that he rerouted during the Battle of New York City. Tony sets out to take down the Grandmaster with Korg and one of the chariot drivers by racing him for the planet and Tony's suit. A race which also forcibly includes Gamora ensues, and it soon goes off track to outside the arena onto another track, at which point Tony changes his suit into a replacement chariot when his is wrecked. Another giant elephant and its brother or sister are again introduced to the proceedings, causing Gamora to crash, but not before Tony talks to her over comms about stepping out of her father's shadow and making a change for the good like he did. The race soon comes down to just Tony and the Grandmaster, and Tony wins by a hair before changing his chariot back into a suit. The Grandmaster pretends the race was a tie, but doesn't get away with it because his number one goon is wrecked in her vehicle by the other racer that Tony was allied with, and her zappy stick flies out of her chariot, landing at the feet of the Grandmaster and accidentally zapping him, causing him to melt into a puddle, though he doesn't die. As Tony prepares to return to Earth, he's nabbed by Gamora, who takes him before Thanos, but not to turn him over, as instead she zaps Thanos with the Grandmaster's goon's zappy device. And that's where the episode ended. So, of the first 4 episodes, this is the best one. I think a lot of that is due to Jeff Goldblum, who is undeniably excellent in the part of the Grandmaster. I did not like Thor 3, even though I know everybody thinks that one's the great one. But I did like Jeff Goldblum in it, and I liked him again in this. He's very endearing and very funny and very fun, and so I really liked his presence, the Grandmaster character's presence in this episode. And I thought this was the first episode that really had any real heart to it. When Tony is talking to Gamora, which he does over the course of the episode a few times, about, not just being Thanos's minion, as it were, but being her own person and, doing good in the world rather than Thanos's bidding, which is decidedly not good. I liked that. And I thought it was the only thing about the first 4 episodes that amounted to this season having anything to say, which I think good art should always do. It should always have something to say. Other art can be enjoyable, but at the same time, non-substantive if it doesn't have anything to say. And I thought that this was the most substantive episode of the first 4. And, I love the art style, and I think the voice actor that they got to do Tony did a good job of sounding like Robert Downey Jr., so that was good. Korg, once again, was funny. So I like this episode better than the previous 3, because it had all the fun elements of the previous 3, but it also had something to say. So I like that. And, it leaves us at the end with, well, what's going on with Thanos? Gamora zaps him, or at least tries to zap him, and it cuts. So we don't know where it's going to go. Are we going to see Thanos again? Because, last season, they had these individual episodes, but they wove the story together in the end and took elements from all the episodes and blended them into an overarching story. So I think they're going to do that again, because it just makes sense. And I'm guessing we're going to see more of Thanos and Gamora and Tony. I don't think we're done with them, and I think we're going to see the threads from the previous 3 episodes make their way into an overarching story again this season, but time will tell which ones. So the next episode was, what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? As the episode starts, once again, we're at the Battle of New York in an alternate universe this time, and Captain Carter takes the place of Captain America before a flashback to the end of last season when she and Black Widow discover the Hydra Stomper occupied by Steve Rogers in a shipping container aboard a boat. And we pick up where that scene left off as the Hydra Stomper escapes its container and starts chasing Peggy and Black Widow and firing at them. Apparently, Steve survived the decades with his youth here too, but at the hands of the Red Room, and became stuck in the Stomper, which is sustaining him, and which Fury and Widow knew, though no one told Peggy. The Stomper attacks S.H.I.E.L.D. HQ, trying to kill Bucky, who is now apparently Secretary of Defense, so Peggy and Widow take him on. Bucky almost talks Steve out of killing him, but he goes to take the shot and is only stopped by Peggy's shield thrown at his arm. Peggy manages to capture Steve, and he agrees to help her and Widow get to the Red Room, which he knows the location of, where they plan to free him from the suit without killing him somehow. Apparently, it's in Russia, in a fake American town populated by robots made to look like 1950s humans or 1940s humans, who attack Widow and Peggy after Peggy and Steve catch up and almost kiss before Widow's mother shows up, and Steve is shown to have taken the ladies there for the Red Room so Widow's mom could try to take Peggy. So it was a double cross. So Peggy and Widow run, but are chased by Steve and the other Widows, leading to each fighting their pursuers. Widow ends up fighting her mother, and Peggy eventually surrenders to Steve, saying she wants to be with him, even if it's her end. But he takes off over her objections instead of shooting her, as Widow's mom choked Widow, but only until Widow ties her to Steve with a rope from her, her arm device, as he flies by on his way to destroying the flying Red Room facility, after which Peggy is kidnapped through a portal, ending up in some kind of medieval universe where there are also avengers. And that's where the episode ended. So I like this episode. I like the art style. I like the action pace, of it. And, who doesn't like Agent Carter and Black Widow and, Steve Rogers and all that stuff. And this episode even had a little bit of heart to it, which, again, the first 3 episodes were missing. The whole story between Steve and Peggy is very endearing and, I think, compelling. So there was something there, unlike the first 3 episodes. So I was happy for that. I guess it left me wanting, though, in the way that, we don't know why Steve is in the Stomper, the Hydra Stomper armor. At some point after World War II, apparently he was taken over by the Red Room. He was kidnapped or whatever and made to carry out missions for them, but it's very sketchy. We don't know very much about that. So I don't know, maybe we'll find out more as things progress. Because I think, again, we're going to see more of Peggy and Widow and Steve from this universe in the last 3 episodes. I would be very surprised if we don't. Anyway, on to the 6th episode, which was called What If Kahhori Reshaped the World? As this episode starts, a fire giant destroys Asgard during Ragnarok, and the Tesseract, which survived, finds itself on 1500s Earth in a Mohawk tribal village where Kahhori, a Mohawk woman, lives. She and a young Mohawk boy, her brother, find themselves near a lake where a great battle was once fought, after which no one removed the bodies. And they talk about how powerful the lake is, according to legend, and that other groups have been fighting over it before they hear gunshots and explosions coming from the village, which they first mistake for thunder until they see smoke coming from the area of the village and realize that something's wrong. Returning to the village, they find it under siege by conquistadors whom they run from, and find themselves in a cave underground which contains a glowing blue river or pond, which the conquistadors seem to think is the Fountain of Youth. When Kahhori is shot by the conquistadors, she falls into the lake and tumbles through a vortex into a strange wooded area, which is apparently a place called Skyworld, where she's greeted by another Mohawk, who, like her and like his fellow villagers, apparently got there by also falling or going into the lake and subsequently into the vortex. It turns out that when the Tesseract landed there, it created the vortex and this other place that the people there cannot go back from. But it also gives them eternal life, and it imbues them and everything around them with powers. In fact, Kahhori finds that she can jump to great heights, and she uses this ability to try to make it to the portal in the sky so that it can send her back to the lake that she originally went into, but she isn't successful. She does, though, go with her new friend on a hunt, which the villagers undertake to try to gather what they call fruit that contains a large amount of the Tesseract's power. But the thing is that they grow on the backs of oversized buffalo-like creatures with tusks. So along with her new friends, she runs at super speed alongside these giant creatures to try to get on top of one and take a fruit. When she unintentionally goes so fast that she overtakes the herd and finds herself about to get trampled, she throws up her hands and realizes that she also has the power to lift and move large objects, such as an oversized buffalo with tusks, which she lifts over her head and behind her so as not to get overrun by it. At the end of the hunt, while her fellow tribespeople gathered only as many as 12 and fewer fruits individually, she manages to gather a very large amount of them. Meanwhile, the conquistador leader investigates the lake and is convinced it will give he and his fellow conquistadors immortality. When a number of his troops venture into the lake, they of course get sucked into the vortex and end up in the other Mohawk village. They then go on the attack, but Kahhori is able to stop all of their musket balls with her powers, as well as to remove their rifles from them, sending them running, at which point she manages to grab them all telekinetically and bring them to her. She then scolds her fellow Mohawks for becoming soft in this land, and after finding her brother's necklace on one of the conquistadors, she discovers she can use her powers to manipulate the vortex and bring it to ground level, after which she goes through it to return to her village to try to help them. She finds the conquistadors hauling her people off to their ships, and she lays waste to them, throwing them all around like rag dolls. She even manages to block or deflect a number of cannonballs fired at her from the conquistadors' nearby ships, but is eventually knocked down by one. Just as the conquistador leader is about to seemingly kill her, a bunch of her fellow Mohawks, probably all of them, from the sky world come through the forest and overwhelm the remaining conquistadors on the beach and on the ships by running across the water to them and destroying them. After rescuing her people, Kahhori leads her fellow empowered Mohawks right to Queen Isabella's throne room through the vortex, at which point she reads the Queen the Riot Act, telling her that the world is no one's to claim, and destroys her throne. All of this allowing Doctor Strange to hone in on her location and find her after having been looking for her for a long time. And that's where the episode ended. So I thought this episode was fantastic. By far, hands down, the best episode of the first 6. I liked 4 and 5 better than 1, 2, and 3, but this one was better than those two and way better than 1, 2, and 3. It had a lot to say, and interestingly, it said it all in non-English. All of the dialogue was in either Mohawk or Spanish until the very end when Doctor Strange shows up and speaks one line of English. I thought that was very interesting. They actually worked with the Mohawk people to get all of those details right. So I thought that was cool. But the way this particular story was told, which, is in flashback, they're all sort of told in flashback. But I think it worked for this episode in ways that it doesn't work as well for the other episodes because, it gives the watcher a chance to editorialize. And his editorializing in this episode, I thought, was more powerful than it was in the previous episodes because, the nature of the story itself was more powerful about, a woman fighting for her people and doing the right thing, which, we kind of saw in the episode with Iron Man and Gamora, but it was very muted in that episode as compared to this. So I liked this episode much better. The art style, again, of this whole series is amazing, but I think that shone through in this episode to a much higher degree because they were working with the native people and because of the conquistadors, they had to draw all of that and animate all of that in a way we've never seen before. So that was excellent. I just found the whole thing very moving, especially because in the end, she says to the queen, the world is no one's to claim when the queen tries to tell her that, her people are the queens to rule over, just like everybody else in the world is. And when she says that, what she's not saying is that she herself is going to take over the world or rule over the Spaniards or whatever. She's just saying, no one can rule the world, not you, not me. And she says, we're going to have peace or you people are not going to have a future. Where she could very clearly have just taken over Spain with her powers, if not more than Spain, alongside her fellow Mohawks who also all have powers. And I just really, really like that. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of Kahhori in the next few episodes, which we certainly are going to, if for no other reason because Doctor Strange comes at the end and says, I've been trying to find you. And I think we're going to find out why starting in episode 7. Certainly by episode 9, we'll know why. And I can't wait. I think that's going to be great because I think this is a great new character that they created just for this series. And I just can't wait to see more of this character and more of her. But that's really it. There are 3 more episodes left, and I'm going to come back to do a breakdown and review of each of those episodes in another video 3 days from now. For now, I'm going to get out of here. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.